Hello, everybody. My name is Peter Wright. I'm going to give a brief introduction of myself, and then we're going to talk, hopefully, very quickly about academic writing. Thesis statements will be a very important thing that we're going to cover, and it's going to be a big step on your journey. And for some of you, your first class and understanding what a thesis statement is, a good thesis statement will essentially write the paper for you. So we're going to talk about that. But first, my name is Peter Wright. I went to Urshan College. It was Gateway College of Evangelism my freshman year whenever I was 18 years old, and that would have been 2011, I believe. And I graduated from Urshan College. It changed over my sophomore year, I think near the end of my sophomore year, maybe the beginning. I graduated from Urshan College in 2015 with my bachelor's in Christian ministries. And then I decided that I wanted to go on in the realm of biblical studies. I wanted to go on in the realm of theology. And so through prayer and through really just a desire, and sometimes I feel like God just gives us desires in order to show us His will, but I decided to attend Urshan Graduate School of Theology. I started as an MDiv student. I had dreams of being a chaplain. I really didn't understand all of why I was at UGST or why God wanted me there. But as I went on, I realized that God was asking me to teach. He wanted me to have knowledge in depth of Scripture, of His Word, that I could share with others. He wanted me to wrestle with some of the hard issues or the hard topics or the sticky subjects of our day that some people may write about. He wanted me to have that understanding. He wanted me to share that with others. And so I actually switched from the MDiv to the Master's of Theological Studies. I switched to the MTS. Partly because I want to be a teacher. In the MDiv, you can do that, you can teach, and that's good, but I wanted to go on to a PhD. And so part of my decision was this was the more expedited route, because you had to write a thesis, and so it was sort of in that realm of academia and scholarship and things like that. We had to do that, which, again, we're going to talk about shortly. But also is quicker to getting to a PhD, which hopefully I will be starting in October of this year, Lord willing. But I graduated in 2018 in May with my Master's of Theological Studies. I wrote my thesis statement. It was 61, 62 pages, and it was on the book of Revelation, and I focused on some different things in that book, but I graduated. As I was graduating, as I was finishing up my master's degree, I felt specifically called to continue to be a part of the Urshan community. I believed in its mission. I believed in what it was doing, both Urshan on the undergraduate side and also UGST and what we're trying to accomplish here, training and equipping ministers for pastoral duty, for preaching ministry, for music, whatever it is you want to use your theological education for teaching, for writing. If you want to have a publishing ministry, I believe in everything that the Urshan community is doing from an apostolic perspective, from a Pentecostal perspective. We're allowed and we have access to brilliant men and women who can train us and inform us in the realm of theology, again, from an apostolic perspective. And so I decided to stick around. Part of that meant that I started to TA for many different teachers and faculty members. I TA'd for Brother Chris Paris, Dr. Chris Paris. I TA'd for Brother Cullen Cressman. He's a good friend of mine. We've been going to school for quite a while together. I TA'd for Dr. Runk, and now this will be my second, third, maybe third class, and I'm doing two this semester with Dr. Norris, and so we've sort of started what I'll call a long-term TA relationship, and that I'm helping him here. But that is my story. I'm also, this semester, I'll be adjuncting for the first time. I have my very own class. I'll be teaching the book of Revelation, a sticky subject to get into as your first class. But that is who I am. That is where I'm currently at. And most importantly, I believe in you, and I believe in your callings, I believe in your dreams, and I believe that you are here for a purpose and for a reason, and it is my goal and it is my calling to help you accomplish yours, to be of aid, to be of assistance. That doesn't mean I'll always be easy. I may have to correct some things or give direction on things. Again, I'm still learning as well, but things that I see that maybe need some correction or some guidance, I may step in and do that, but it is all in the spirit of I want you to be better. I want you to be successful here at UGST so you can go on and do great things, even though you are even right now, but you can go on equipped from UGST to do great things for the Lord. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about academic writing. As you'll notice, as you'll soon find out if you haven't experienced it before, academic writing, and specifically in the realm of biblical studies or theology, it really is a different animal. They don't speak like normal people. They don't write like normal people. There's big words and there's heavy concepts and difficult things to understand. And I was like, I just wanted to know who Jesus was. And here I was learning all this stuff like eschatological tension and all of these synoptic problems. I didn't know there was a problem with the Gospels until I came to Urshan and UGST. But you'll start to realize these things and you'll start to run into language that you don't quite understand. And that's okay. I'm here to sort of be a guide. I'm here to help you through this journey of yours. And so the first thing I'll say is that to become accustomed to a new language, you normally study the language or you immerse yourself. You hear other people speak the language. Maybe you read other things of language. You take classes in the language. And what I mean by that is go and pick up commentaries from a reputable publishing house. This is one of the commentaries I'm using for my class. Pick up some of these commentaries. Pick up some of these books and read them and see how they're writing. See how they're speaking of the Bible. Pick up, they even have theological dictionaries you can buy. You can begin to read these things and learn the language. And so you can pick that up and you can sort of get up to pace in that sense. Now, more specifically about academic writing, we have something here at UGST called SBL. This is the Society of Biblical Literature. This is how we cite our sources here at UGST for the most part. I believe all the professors adhere to SBL, at least some way, shape, or form. Some may be more strict than others. My advisor was Dr. Brickle. Everything had to be perfect. But SBL is what we cling to. I will say, if you plan on spending any time at UGST whatsoever and pursuing graduate level academic writing, you need to buy this book, the SBL Handbook of Style. This is the second edition. I believe the second edition is the latest edition. You need to pick this book up. It's about that thick. It will be your best friend. This is how you cite sources at UGST. This is how you footnote things, say you quote an author, or you even borrow an idea from an author. You must footnote that in this style in the papers that you write. Now, this is a rather thick book, and that can be daunting, but it is helpful because it gives you instances for anything you could ever imagine. One thing I will say as a help or as an aid, most of the books that you will be citing will probably be commentaries. Some of them are written by a single author. Some have multiple authors. Like this one, this is a commentary. It has one author, Craig Kester, right there. What I will say is starting on page 84 here, it actually has examples. It says general examples for books, a book by a single author, a book by 2 or 3 authors, and it will show you can't really see that here, but it will show you how you're supposed to footnote these sources. And I will say in this class specifically, and as you go on, if you are not citing an SBL, points are taken off. Points are removed. So don't just look over this. Don't bypass this. Don't say it's not important. This is very important. This is how we know that you are not plagiarizing. This is how we know you are citing the correct source. This is how we know you're being thorough and accurate in your research. This is important. So pick this book up if you can and adhere to it. Whenever I'm grading assignments and you have to cite an SBL, when I'm grading your initial 1-page paper, then your 5-page paper, if I look and I see that you're not citing SBL, you will lose points. And the more you do it, the more points you lose. And you may even have to revise your whole paper because you're not citing an SBL. So this is important. You need to have this book. You need to have this style down pat to continue. Now that that is out of the way and we can cover this, you can email me. I'm always available to talk. We can meet via FaceTime. I'm open to that. I'm big on the technology to where I don't have to drive or travel. Maybe that's laziness, or maybe I work smarter, not harder. I'm not sure which side of the tracks I am on that issue. But the next thing that we need to talk about and cover before I end this video is a thesis statement. Besides SBL, really I'd put a thesis statement higher than SBL, but along with SBL, a thesis statement is key. If you've never heard of a thesis statement, or maybe the thesis statement I'm going to talk about is different in biblical studies than the one that you have heard of in previous institutions that you've been a part of, I'll say what a thesis statement is not first. Excuse my cough, by the way. I'm dealing with some throat issues. A thesis statement is not a sentence telling me your plan for what you're going to write. It is not saying, in this paper, I will discuss the book of Matthew and I will look at chapter 13. That's not a thesis statement. That's an itinerary. That's not a thesis statement. So what a thesis statement is it is a claim. It is a statement of fact. It is, this is what I'm saying. This is the claim I am making about the passage of scripture I'm researching, about the theological topic that I'm researching. I am making a claim. Excuse me, I'm going to stand up just for a second to grab my thesis statement. That way I can embarrass myself and nobody else by using their thesis statements. So as I said before, my thesis statement was on the book of Revelation. This is my thesis, all nice and bound. It's a statement of fact. It is a claim. It's not an itinerary. You're not just telling me the ideas that you have or what you're going to write about. Before I read my thesis statement, I want to say three things about what a thesis statement is. A thesis statement must be specific. And what I mean by that is avoid generalities. Avoid saying, I'm going to look at the entire Bible. Or even, I'm going to look at just the Old Testament. Or I'm going to look just at the New Testament. For an 18-page paper, you do not have enough time to cover in 18 to 20 pages the Old Testament or New Testament. No matter what the topic is, you don't have enough time to do that. So it must be more specific than that. So you can say, I'm going to study, we'll just use a popular passage. You probably can't use this passage in a thesis statement for the second point I'm going to mention, but you can say in Acts 2:38 and then make your claim. That'll be your claim. It has to be very specific, very honed. Try to get it as small as possible. That way you can go in depth in your subject. Number two, it must be arguable. And what I mean by that is I don't mean you're arguing until you're blue in the face, like yelling at somebody trying to prove your point. I mean there has to be enough data to either support or disprove the claim that you're making. So if you want to talk about how Genesis is an exact representation of the space-time continuum, that's not made up. I had a student want to write about the space-time continuum. He was an interesting guy. He was sharp, he was bright, but Genesis is not a science book necessarily, and it doesn't speak of the space-time continuum. There's no commentary, there's no author, there's no way that you can argue that because you don't have the data to make that claim. You don't have the resources to make that claim or for somebody to disprove your claim. So it must be arguable. Or in another sense, if you would say, especially in Pentecostal circles, I will argue that Jesus is God. Okay, everybody would agree with you. And so what I'm saying that, I'm not saying you have to be provocative. I'm not saying you're trying to go off on the deep end and trying to make something up. What I'm saying is that you are trying to add something to the already existing bank of knowledge and understanding of Scripture. So if you're just trying to claim or trying to support things that everyone, at least in Pentecostal circles, already believes, then it's probably not a good thesis statement. It's probably not a good claim. And again, we'll work through this as the semester goes on. This is just introductory remarks. And finally, this is a little more specific, maybe a little more pointed as far as good writing is concerned. Do not state your thesis statement in negatives. So do not say Acts 2:38 does not say, or Acts 2:38 isn't or is not. Rather say Acts 2:38 is. So speak in positives. There's another video in this thread, if you will, if you want to scroll down further. Jeremy Painter speaks in depth about thesis statements. This is just brief introduction. If you want to listen to an awesome job, really talking about how you develop a thesis statement, how you're always revisiting your thesis statement, revising it and updating as you do your research, watch that video. I encourage you. You'll learn a lot. But it has to be stated and positive. So here's what I mean. I'm going to read this to you from my own thesis statement. And again, this, whether it makes sense to you or not, I'm really wanting to get the idea of the form of a thesis statement. So this is very basic language. I said, this thesis asserts. So this is my claim. I'm asserting, I'm claiming. This thesis asserts that John's use of parody, again, this may mean nothing to you, but listen to the form. John's use of parody, employing Nero-esque imagery, is present within the closing scenes of the apocalypse, and is not solely confined to the Christological parody observed by many scholars. So I'm making a statement of fact for me. I'm asserting something. This thesis asserts that John's, talking about the book of Revelation, I've set this up, that John's use of parody, That is a very specific thing that I'm talking about. John's use of parody, and then I even get more specific, not just his use of parody. I say John's use of parody employing Nero-esque imagery. So specifically John's parody that contains some form that seems to look like he's using Nero as an example to say certain things theologically. I get even more specific. And then I get more specific than that. I say that it is present within the closing scenes of the apocalypse. I don't even argue specifically for all of Revelation. I say the closing scenes, the last 1 to 2 chapters. I am saying the John's use of parody employing Nero-esque imageries in those last little bit of the apocalypse. And then I say it is not solely confined to the Christological parody observed by many scholars. So that's, I'm speaking in positives, but I'm arguing against maybe what other scholars have said about that. So I hope that helps. That's a claim. I'm being very specific. I hope that helps in what a thesis statement is. And again, part of the discussion post that you're going to be doing, part of their goal, if you will, is to help inform and correct and encourage good practices, good academic writing. So if I'm reading thesis statements that you believe are thesis statements, and I'm saying, no, maybe we need to be a little more specific here. Maybe we need to be a little more arguable here. Maybe we need to have this stated in a positive way rather than a negative way. We will be doing that through the semester. But by the time you get to your paper, a thesis statement will essentially write the paper for you because it's specific and it's guided and it's directed and it's pointed. And writing an 18 to 20 page paper becomes easy. I won't say it's super easy, but it gets easier. It gets much easier, but it starts with a very, very pointed, arguable, positive thesis statement. And again, we'll get into that later. I pray blessings over you. I'm excited about this semester. I'm excited about this class. I remember my first class was biblical interpretation or whatever the actual title of this class is at this present moment. But I remember that first class. I remember the life change that the effect that it had on me. And so I'm excited. So I pray blessings over you. I look forward to the semester. Please feel free to email me at any time. And I will get back to you as quickly as I can. Normally, I'm fairly good at getting back as far as emails are concerned. So please feel free to send me any questions. If there's problems on Canvas, if an assignment is off or something's gone haywire on Canvas, which sometimes Canvas is known to go haywire, please send me an email and I'll hopefully be able to get on that right away. I do have a 40-hour a week, sometimes more job. So during the day, I may not be able to contact right away, but as soon as I get off, I'll be available, and I will be available to you to help you. But anyway, God bless. I hope you have an awesome semester, and I look forward to having experiences and awesome times with you through this course. Blessings.